Hi, so with a lot of consternation about Blizzard rejigging the portals, what I'd like to very briefly discuss is what Blizzard's rationale for it is and if it's actually correct. So, every now and then this happens, we have portals in the world and Blizzard want to consolidate them into the newer zones and they decide that some older ones aren't really needed. And so they shut some down and open others up. And the latest changes should see more portals, well, they will see more portals open up in Orgrimmar and Stormwind, but others will be disabled as well. So whether it ends up being an improvement or not for an individual player very well depends upon what their current portal use is. For some players, it will actually be a benefit. For other players, it won't. So the changes may be a good thing or not, depending on your point of view. And there's plenty of points of view to the contrary on that. But I'm not going to criticise it in itself, apart from the fact I don't really care at the moment. I'm not playing that much of it. I'm certainly not using a lot of the portals. But I could make the argument here that yet again, Blizzard have done something that annoys some players without the benefit of pleasing others. After all, they could have introduced the new portals without disabling the others. What do they gain? What does anyone gain by disabling the others? And that aside, when someone was complaining that certain portals are being removed or made less convenient, the Blizzard response was that portals make the world feel smaller. But do they? Now, if we actually used the world to its fullest, I'd have to agree. How could you not? For example, I'm someone who agrees that with Blizzard about the downsides of flying. I was right with them in agreeing that it had not been a good addition to the game. I have many memories of journeys to raids, for example, and dungeons during vanilla. I can distinctly remember quite a lot of, fun moments. I don't remember any remarkable journeys to instances in any expansion that I have played. And that's because nothing remarkable happens when you're flying. Even fewer chances of remarkable things happening when you had the Have Guild Will Travel perk in Cataclysm. But yeah, flying, what's going to happen to you? You might go AFK and then end up coming back and you've died to fatigue because you forgot you were AFK flying. That was it. But, before flying, I remember the time when we were waiting for the boat at Menethil Harbour to take us to Onyxia's lair and one of our tanks got too close to the edge. Boat came, knocked him in the water. By the time he swam round and got back on the jetty, the boat had gone. We had a good laugh about that. Journeys to Diamore, where I had to run through the Tauren camp in Feralus. There was the time I was shown the shortcut to climb up the chain to Blackrock Spire, or how I discovered the jump down to get to Molten Core Elf more quickly. The way I used to navigate my way around the much higher level bears in Western Plaguelands to get to Scarlet Monastery as, a relatively low level player for being in Western Plaguelands. So ease of transport, though convenient, of course makes the world feel smaller if you're in the world. But as Blizzard have had a policy of abandoning old zones and whenever a new expansion comes out, basically, I don't think portals do make the world feel smaller. What makes the world feel smaller is that the world is only as large as the 5 or 6 zones that a new expansion has. So our world at the moment is Zuldazar, Kulturas and a little bit of Silithus. There's some instance things like the islands and stuff like that, but that's all instance. It's not really what I call the world, even though it's obviously supposed to be part of Azeroth. And given that the portals in question aren't making travel across Zuldazar or Kulturas easier, only the older zones, which are barely used, I'd argue that it has no effect on how we see the World of Warcraft. On the contrary, given that when we do want to use those portals to carry out a quick task in an old zone, if we're faced with a 15-minute journey to do it, some people may feel it's not worth it anymore and not bother at all. Congratulations, the policy has now discouraged someone from playing the game. So I'd definitely say that if it's Blizzard's policy to abandon old zones with each new expansion anyway, then they should absolutely make it as convenient as possible to travel to those old irrelevant zones. And not just, not just to them, but within them even as well. Now, they have done that. If you think about, very old zones since vanilla, there are more flight points in each zone than there used to be in vanilla. So they have sort of improved on that, I guess. But don't hamper people trying to get to those places. Now, it's a little example, and I'm not sure if this has been rectified since, but Pathfinder was first introduced hastily in Warlords of Draenor after they'd intended to remove flying altogether. They just didn't tell us. When they did tell us, it was like, no, you're not doing that. To which they went, oh dear, we better not do that. But players who didn't get the achievement during WoD, because they weren't playing in WoD, maybe they only started playing in Legion, they still couldn't fly in Draenor when it was no longer the relevant zones in the relevant expansion. So even when Legion came out, these players couldn't fly in Draenor. What were they going to do? Do the Pathfinder for Warlords of Draenor just to be able to fly around for a bit? That would be ridiculous. So the idea that newer players would complete that long achievement just to fly around old zones while they're just leveling up was ridiculous. Now, if Blizzard were actually to make older zones relevant, then I could go along with the idea of too many portals spoils the game a bit. But those zones are not relevant. They're simply an inconvenience that happens to sometimes contain a chance of transmog gear or a pet. Of course, this is essentially a subjective topic, indeed, and many people's views could be coloured, of course, by their own experiences of other games. Now, so for example, the MMOs I've experienced as well, Lord of the Rings Online, Star Wars The Old Republic, Elder Scrolls Online, to take three main ones. So in Elder Scrolls Online, you can basically teleport anywhere to pretty much anywhere at any time. There is a gold cost if you actually just want to do it anywhere. Whereas if you can make it to one of the there's some important stone things, quite a lot of them in each zone. If you can be asked to make it to that, it doesn't cost anything. Star Wars The Old Republic, you can teleport to your ship, and from that ship travel to any world. Each world is a zone, basically. You know, you can do that fairly quickly. Within the zone, there is no quick travel, just the taxis. But as I say, you can at least quick travel to a taxi point. So you've got quite convenient travel within. That's a little bit like the whistle that we have in World of Warcraft. Lord of the Rings Online, I would say, is the most restrictive because there is some quick travel there, but it's hugely inconvenient. Travel in general is much less convenient, and it's certainly much less convenient than World of Warcraft. It's much more an old style MMO from that time that hasn't really modernised in those sort of ways, in terms of convenience, certainly. Or if you like a game where they don't pander to people wanting convenience, the Lord of the Rings Online, absolutely. It has many charms, but convenience is not one of them. So my personal experience is World of Warcraft, I think, makes it difficult and time-consuming to get around a largely irrelevant world. It's more convenient than some and less than others. But I'd still maintain that if players have little reason to spend much time in those older zones anyway, then massively increasing the time with inefficient travel is only going to make them less likely to do so when the imperative is weak anyway. And I come back to this point. You've got two groups of players. And, you know, if you're going to do something that favours some, because some people are going to be benefiting from these changes. It's not like removing stuff for everyone. And with the other group of players, if they have to suffer a little bit to benefit the other group of players, sometimes that happens. Class design, it happens all the time, doesn't it? You know, you buff something on a character and that, you know, helps the players of that class. It hinders everyone else because, relatively speaking, their classes have come down in power compared to it. If you nerf a character, again, the players of those characters are brought down, but some other players of other characters have effectively been brought up. So that's a situation where there is a trade-off. Now, whether they make the right decision on it is, of course, up for debate. And usually that debate runs along class lines, isn't it? Certainly on PvP forums. But the fact is, you can at least understand that a decision has to be made, and you're going to benefit some players and you know, not benefit others, but you have to do that. With something like this, it doesn't hurt anyone to have kept the old portals in. So there has to, for me, be a good reason to remove those portals. Because otherwise, all you're doing is risking. It's like chipping away. There's already a lot of people not that happy with Battle for Azeroth. Some people have already quit, we know that. There are others that are carrying on. But there's this little, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back at some point, isn't it? You know, it's all this stuff being loaded on that's like burdensome rather than fun. for some people, not everyone, obviously some people love it. And there comes a point where it might just be a little thing that where someone just says, stuff it, I'm not playing it anymore. And it could be something as simple and stupid as this. So I really do think Blizzard should carefully consider it. You know, and it's not that I think there's anything wrong with what they're doing in general. You know, if you're gonna modernize the portals to be more relevant to the zones that people are using anyway, great. And if you want to tidy up all ones because you don't want portals all over the place, I understand that. But is it really worth it? Is it worth it when, you know, you could actually suffer from it? But, you know, that's my view. I just don't see the payoff for them in closing portals down. I can see the payoff in opening more up, not in closing them down. And I know the argument is, oh, you know, should we just give everyone the power of mages to teleport around everywhere? No, you don't necessarily have to do that. You know, because the hubs where you're closing them down are hubs that most people are not using anyway. Because when it comes to, oh, portals make the world feel smaller, removing them for me is making it feel smaller. Because when I do play, the areas I go around are Zuldazar, of course, as a Horde player, Orgrimmar, because that's where the auction house and stuff is. I don't have a bronze sword now. But also Legion Dalaran. Why Legion Dalaran? Because there are portals to like Shrine and from Pandaland, and also Old Shattrath, because you go through Pandaland portals, you can get to, well, actually just Shattrath. I'm actually meant Old Dalaran as well. You know, so it's convenient from that point of view. And of course, we've got a separate Dalaran Hearthstone. That's always nice. Whereas if you remove some of those, then you think to yourself, well, hang on a minute. That's now making the world not feel larger, because now some of those little quick trips I would have taken, I won't take at all. I'll now confine myself to Orgrimmar and Zuldazar. So now the world's just got a little bit smaller. But that's for me. For some other players, it may not. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content. Until next time, I'll see you later.